What's up, guys? We are live with another episode of CarBiz Leaders Live featuring the principal's office. I like to say this is the only principal's office where you actually would like to go to. We are talking to dealer principals, high-level people, gurus in the car business. Today, I have a very special guest. In a moment, we are going to learn from the great Evan Fineberg. He has been in the car business for many a decade, has a beautiful Subaru dealership, and is very successful. He has sold 20,000 cars personally. That means he sat down with 20,000 different families and embarked on their journey of their mobility. So, without further ado, we're going to get this party started with another episode of Car Biz Leaders Live. It is on, family. Let's do this. Here we go. I am very pleased to welcome Evan Fineberg. Hi, Evan. How are you today?
Good. Hi, Rachel. How are you?
Good. I thank you so much for
this holiday
joining
weekend.
me. Yeah. Well, I'm really grateful that we kind of keep the momentum of this show going. We've been doing it every Monday. So I'm grateful that you decided to join me on our day off and we can have fun anyway, because I love this job, and it's really not work when you love it, right?
Of course.
So if you wouldn't mind just taking a moment to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey as a Subaru owner and how you got there.
Okay. I've been in the car business since 1975. I graduated from Northwood in 1979, and the trail took me to a lot of different places. I worked in South Bend, Indiana for 6 months, and then I moved back to Cleveland and worked for who eventually I became his partner. And then I worked for a relative of mine in the Chevy store, and then became partners with the first guy I worked with in a leasing company. And then I bought a Chrysler Jeep dealership in 06. And in 13, I bought my second dealership, Subaru. And in 19, I sold the first dealership, the Chrysler Jeep store.
So we are a Subaru family, the Blatts are. We own a Outback. It's a gorgeous car. My husband absolutely loves it. And then his father bought a Subaru. His brother bought a Subaru. All of them are white, of course. But we are obsessed with the brand. I grew up driving a Subaru. And funny story, actually it was a stick shift. And I took my mom's and dad's car and drove it. And when I went to park it back in the garage, I got nervous and I pushed the clutch instead of the brake and almost knocked down their entire garage. Oops, sorry, Daddy. He still forgives me after all these years, but that is my Subaru story right there.
But Subaru has the highest repeat customers of any manufacturer.
Yeah.
We
grew up with them all our lives. Like my parents had like 4 of them. So
yeah.
I love that they're made with love.
Yep. People love their Subarus, and Subaru loves their customers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So tell me about, you decided to sell the Chevy dealership. Tell me about like just focusing purely on Subaru. What has that been like for you?
I've been around the block, since '75 and worked with various manufacturers. By far, Subaru is just the nicest and the finest people in the car business to work for.
Hmm.
Anyone in the car business knows what an audit is like. Once upon a time, there were about 115 engine jobs in Cleveland, and my dealership did 105 of them. So all the audit, team goes, "How come you have so many, engine jobs and no one else does?" Because the reps were sending us all the business. And
Hmm.
the audit team came in and said, your paperwork could have been a little bit tighter, but thank you for taking care of our customers, and shook my hand. There's not a chance that General Motors, Ford, or Chrysler would ever done anything like that. You would have fought, clawed your way back, even though you did everything right, but they'll
Right.
find something that isn't perfect. Subaru's truly your partner in being in the car business, and
Yeah.
they want to make they want you to make they want you to be successful, and they show you the path to be successful.
Yeah. So we're talking to, you and I are both business owners, and as you know, it comes with a myriad of challenges of and it really does take great partners to support you and kind of like make sure that you're successful. What are some of the challenges that you've had to face um since COVID maybe or before that? Things that we
Yeah,
could all learn from.
yeah, yeah. It was a whole different ballgame with COVID. All of a sudden, January of 2000, COVID hits. February, everyone starts to get nervous. March, the first cases hit the United States. Uh, First guy dies, I think, in March.
Mhm.
April and May, they shut everything down for 2 months.
Right.
So it was uncharted territory. And in the beginning, everybody was panicking. We weren't going to sell another new car, and used cars were plummeting. And little did we know that in 6 months, used cars would be through the moon, and new cars would be hard to get because they didn't build any for a couple months. And everything's supply and demand. So when
Mhm.
there's no supply and demand's high, you know what happens?
Right.
Prices go up.
You and I were talking a little bit offline about the UAW strike. Do you feel like Subaru is positioned to sort of prepare to have that supply for customers who are, you know, looking for vehicles? Do you think that they're like beefing it up, getting ready for, the US automakers to not have a lot of supply? Just curious.
It's a good question. Subaru is building. They've always built. They don't believe in rebates. They believe in value. They price their cars right to begin with. They
Hmm.
that game with the consumer where you buy a car at the end of the month, and then next month the rebates get better and you feel sick of
Hmm.
it. Subaru doesn't do that. Subaru's straight, honest, forward pricing, and their cars have the highest resale value, and they take great pride on not overproducing their cars. Now, they told us they want to try and hit 800,000 units in the United States,
Hmm.
and they only have two plants, one in Japan and one uh, in Indiana and like
Hmm.
that. So they're going to probably build at max. Uh, in September, we're getting like 130 cars, which is the most cars I've ever gotten as a Subaru
Hmm.
in 1 month.
Yeah.
Uh, October's a little bit lighter, but they're going to build at max capacity. I would imagine all the other, all the other foreign manufacturers that build on our shores will be building at max capacity. I just hope the UAW realizes that at the end of the day, they can't price themselves out of the market. They've
Right.
had record profits. If you throw out that they haven't had to give incentives in 3 years, and you put back the average incentive of almost $7,000 or $8,000 a car, they don't have record profits. But they have a new leadership trying to prove to the public, you know, that they're true to his members, that he's, just the greatest and the best, and he's going to get them the best contract. This isn't my first rodeo again. And I remember the strike of '79 with Ford. I remember the GM strike 3 years
Hmm.
ago. Nobody wins. Everybody. They
Right.
make
And
it
for
because they can't build the cars, and the worker never makes back the money that he loses too. At the end of the day, it needs something that everybody can work with. The union's going to feel they didn't get enough, and the manufacturer's going to feel that they gave too much. But at the end of the day, it works.
right.
I like profit sharing. I mean, I think the Chrysler workers got almost $19,000 in
Right.
profit sharing. That's the way to do it, because then,
It
the
forces them to work harder. I get that.
yeah, I mean, that's the most fair way to do it, and they can audit the books. These are publicly traded companies that don't play games with their books, so therefore, that's the way to do it. But what do I know? So
Well, I think that's important, because a lot of people are going to lose. I mean, even when we have a setback in our own business, it's like scratching your head, like, okay, how do we solve this and move forward? It takes time. And at the end of the day, I love your idea about profit sharing. I think that is huge. And I think that's where a lot of people are going to. The most successful companies that I have been talking to are they share with their employees because it gives them a sense of ownership and a way to just sort of say, hey, your contribution matters. And the harder you work, the more money we all make. And I think that was one of the very first things I learned in business was like, you eat what you kill, and there's no free
and
ride,
you,
unfortunately.
you being in Detroit's going to be really hard hit, especially if they strike all three. I mean, once upon a time they would pick, you know, they would pick one component plant and strike that and shut all GM down. Uh,
Hmm.
that gets me back to one of my biggest pet peeves in the world was just in time. We'll never in our lifetime, in my son's lifetime, get back what we've lost because of the time. It works on paper, but in theory, it doesn't work.
You mean and just in time in terms of the manufacturing?
Yeah, they have
Yeah.
one supply of parts on the shelf, and then if there's a snowstorm or electric grid or something goes
Right.
wrong, or a hurricane or tornado or something, or in Japan the tsunami where you couldn't get paint. I mean, there was
Right.
one supplier for the pigments, and you could get any color you wanted as long as it was black or white. I've lived through all these things, and you would feel that after this many years that they would learn how to go back to maybe not have a year's worth of parts on the shelf, but maybe have 6 months worth of parts on the shelf. Whatever they save in interest costs of not having the extra inventory costs, they'll never see again because of the unforeseen stuff that happens.
Well, and in my business too, I mean, they pay for a fortune. I mean, the cost is driven up for trucking because if they don't have the shipment, they're going to pay a boatload and shipping. And I do feel like inventory is especially important, even with some of my customers. They're like, oh, we're waiting for parts. We can't fix the car. We're waiting for parts. We're waiting for parts. We're waiting for parts. We're waiting for parts. And, obviously you can't keep every single part, but even if there was like a group sharing of parts, I mean, I feel like that would be very helpful. I'm always interested in inventory. I don't like to run out of stuff personally. I don't know about you.
No, I don't like to run out of stuff either. But let's just use an example. Back in the day, GM went on strike against Delco.
Hmm.
In the old days, they'd have a year's worth of parts on the shelf, and they'd have enough batteries. But now they have 2 or 3 days worth of batteries on the shelf for whoever so it shuts the whole line down, and the whole company goes.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, it works on paper, but there's a whole different world between what works on paper and what works in real life.
Right.
We can't run a car dealership by not having the parts department being able to get the parts and stocking, cars. We've been, Subaru runs typically the leanest inventory of any manufacturer. I think we're below 30 days. It hasn't come out for this month yet, but
Hmm.
the industry norm used to be 60 to 90 days. Subaru's never had that. Some of them right now have a 90-day supply, especially the domestics, and
Right.
because the manufacturers really haven't gotten back into big bad incentives, and
Hmm.
so the supply is really especially on the profitable items such as the Silverados or the Ford F-150 or the Ram trucks. Those are their most profitable things that Detroit makes, and the inventories are all, I'm guessing, I haven't seen it, but all probably 90 to 100 days. So that's a lot of inventory on dealers' lots all of a sudden. Compared to a year ago, it was probably less than 30 or less than 15 2 years. So it's just a very interesting scenario what's going on in the marketplace right now.
How do you feel about the electric? I want to know your opinion.
Well, I've been driving the electric Solterra.
Mm-hmm.
It's an unbelievable car. It's fast, it's quiet, it rides incredible. The only issue is you get range anxiety. Like the other day, Subaru says theirs will go 200 miles on a charge,
Mm-hmm.
with the air conditioning on and on the highway. That's probably about right in the summertime. In the wintertime, it's probably a third to
Mm-hmm.
a half less.
Right.
Last winter, I was driving home. I live about 23 miles from the dealership, and I was driving home in a snowstorm. So I had the heated seats on, the wipers, the front defogger, the rear defogger, and the heated steering wheel. And instead of using 23 miles worth of juice, I used 75 miles worth of juice.
Right.
So, I mean, I felt like I was on Apollo 13. What amps could I eliminate to get home?
Not the heated seats. Not the heated seats.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I
but
went on a road trip and my friend was like, "Oh, you were taking forever." I was like, "It wasn't. I wasn't. We weren't late because of me. We were late because we had to stop and charge, you know." And I'm like, "Who wants to wait around for like 30 minutes?" That's my personal opinion.
I'm not, people get, well, Toyota has this game changer supposedly coming out, which is
Mm-hmm.
800-mile battery and a big a three-seat SUV, which Subaru and Lexus will both get the same or very similar car.
Right.
So that's kind of interesting, and it's a solid state battery that should be able to recharge in 20 minutes to a full charge or an 80% charge.
Right.
That's a game changer. Even if it's 600 miles or 500 miles between charges, 90% of people drive the car less than 100 miles a day.
Right.
When you drive the Solterra in the city, it's great because if you put the regenerating brakes on, you can get probably over 300, 350 miles
Mm-hmm.
to a charge because and sometimes it actually charges as you drive if you're in a lot of stop and go driving, the exact opposite of an ice, which is, it depends who gets back in the White House. If the Dems get back in, I think they're going to push more to electric. If Republicans get in, they'll let the marketplace determine what it really should be. The marketplace always does determine. The government can play games and favor different aspects of it, but at the end of the day, if nobody wants to buy the cars, I don't care how much incentives you put on them. And until we get the range anxiety and the price where it needs to be, people are not going to sit there and worry about the range and worry about charging their car and paying, $20,000 more for a car. But the nice thing about that is, instead of spending $200 or $300 a month on gasoline, you'll spend $30 on electricity or $40 on electricity, which is a huge savings. But the other point is where we're going to put all the spun batteries. Nobody talks about that.
Nobody talks about the batteries, and and not that I'm like all for the environment. Like I really am. I love our nature, and I think, but it's a tricky balance. And I do think I really loved Toyota when they put their foot down and said, "Hey, we're going to stick with hybrid. We're not going to go all electric." I respected that. And there are some government incentives and things along those lines, but I mean, I also I think there's two sides to the coin on both sides, so
the marketplace will determine what will sell and what doesn't sell.
Right.
I mean, and that's the plain and simple answer, and always has been. It's say you want, but Elon Musk, there really hasn't been a successful new car company in the United States in I don't know, 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
Domestic company. Not only has been the success in making money, but he is the number one selling nameplate. I mean, I tip my
Mm-hmm.
hat to this guy, and he's very price conscious. He's lowered the price between the rebate, the tax
Mm-hmm.
rebate, lowering the price. You know, I don't like the way he does business because he doesn't have dealers. He's the marketer, and
Right.
and his only tool really is to cut prices. Um,
Right.
Rebates don't make sense for him because uh, they don't have to uh, floor plan the cars with a dealer, so
Right.
you know, and they don't have the luxury or the to be able to hold on the money. They have to pay for the car when it leaves the assembly line like everybody else.
Right.
But, again, I don't know how his accounting is, but I tip my hat to the guy. They run
Well,
that
he is a
Model 3.
genius, that's for sure.
That
He's a
Model
genius.
3 is,
It's a
you
good
know,
car.
it is a good car.
I don't know. He may change his business model. We don't know that. He's always changing things up, you know. But eventually, he still sees cars as a commodity, but it's such a big purchase that I don't see the way his market plan is going to be lasting forever. I mean, most people think that they could take my business and turn it into a transaction. No, it's too much problems, too many problems to solve in my business. Like you need a human being. You can't just click a button, and regardless of how computer smart they are and with this AI technology coming out, like you still need a human being to solve your problems or at least know how to solve it with technology.
I agree. I mean, unless someone's there making, here the technology says that just in time should work, right? But it doesn't. And
Hmm.
just like artificial intelligence, if there are too many variables that you can't foresee coming across in front of you that artificial intelligence can figure out. Like you're doing a logistic trip to Idaho, and all of a sudden, there's on 80 something happens to the road, and you can't, and there's the quickest way is to take Interstate 80 or across instead of 90, but everybody's on 90. So you switch to the state roads. Someone has to think. The problem with AI and all these things is nobody thinks outside the box,
Yes.
and you really have to think outside the box. Um,
I still call my dad for directions because I don't trust GPS. And my dad, the GPS is wrong. It's telling me 48 minutes. He's like, okay, just go on. So I had to call him to get the real directions. It's like my GPS.
and no offense, your generation and my son's generation, he doesn't even know how to read a map. So he gets
Where
on
do
the
I
app
go?
ways, and it tells him where to go and where the
Yeah,
routes are and how fast he can go and this direction and that direction and
yeah.
you know and
I still have to tell my son, I said, you have to pay attention to where we're going. He's like, why? There's GPS. What if your phone dies? What if you don't have a charger? Like there's a lot of reliance on technology. And I was in a position where like I like locked everything out of my office, including my cell phone, my car keys, everything. And I had to go on like resourceful mode for a little bit. And it was miserable, but I was able to do it, thank God. But that's because I grew up in a time where, we didn't have those things before. So I kind of knew, but still, I'm like, you have to pay attention where we're going. You have to pay attention because you need like a sense of direction, you know?
and
Um,
yeah, well, yeah, it's really important. I mean, Subaru's has the automatic driving feature where the car
yeah,
will steer itself, and
yeah,
but they want you to keep your eyes on the road. It starts yelling at you,
yeah,
pay attention, and it flashes, and then it will shut off. The automatic, it will disable it if they feel
mhm,
that you're not paying attention. And Subaru really believes in safety, safety, safety. I've had
yeah,
two or three friends that their kids have been involved in major accidents where someone pulled in front of them and cut them off, and the
yeah,
airbags went out, and they walked away without a scratch. Subaru loves their customers and makes safe cars where the technology aspect, where I read something on one of those websites that if everybody had the automatic collision on their cars, 85% of the front end accidents would be avoided. That's a pretty good stat.
Yeah.
They didn't say how many deaths would be. I don't remember reading how many deaths would be
Yeah.
eliminated, but that's good stuff to know.
Yeah.
And the safety and the technology aspect of making a car safer is really, but there's also a downside. When I have the blind spot monitors, I don't always turn my head to look in the blind spot
Right. To
to see if
check.
the car's there. And then you drive a car without blind spot monitors.
And then you
Like
don't check.
that's
Hmm.
right. I bought myself a Toyota 71 Eldorado convertible
Yeah. Fun.
that's been
Fun, fun,
restored.
fun.
But it does have two mirrors, thank God. But you still have to turn your head, to see the blind spots,
Yeah.
especially in a convertible. So,
Yeah.
but these kids, when they start learning how to drive with the rear backup camera and the blind spot monitors and all the stuff and the adaptive cruise control, and eventually, I believe there's not going to be two pedals anymore. I believe there's not going to be a steering wheel. There's going to be a joystick, one pedal. You take your foot off the pedal, the car will automatically brake. I mean, the technology is really, in steering, with electronic steering, you just really need a joystick. They don't need a steering wheel anymore. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hope that it doesn't. I hope that I don't know if I'm ready to like live without that yet, as a car person.
are you ready to say to your car, take me to, the Renaissance Center, and it will drive you automatically?
I would like to push a button where it like beams me up, Scotty. But no, I would like if I'm gonna drive, I'm gonna go and be the aggressive driver that I am.
But do you?
But no, I don't know. Like we say these things but I don't know if I'm ready to lose control yet. I still think that there's too many variables out there. I've seen a lot of some things. I'm like, some people should not be driving because they're not paying attention. You know, they're doing all kinds of stuff besides driving. Um, but at the same time, like I'm not ready for that yet. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to watch what the future holds for us. That's for
Well,
sure.
distracted driving has really become a problem,
Oh, it's dangerous. You
and
know.
and the automatic braking, the automatic collision, and the blinds and the wave, the keeping you in your own lane and stuff. That's all good stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
technology is our tools, and we need to use our tools to our success. I can remember, when the first, in the 60s when cruise control first came out.
Mhm.
Wow, you don't have to put your foot on the gas anymore. So this has just been an evolution from that. Um,
Mhm.
so it's just, I thought that was the coolest thing. My uncle was an Olds dealer,
Yeah.
and we got a factory car in '63, and it had every option you could have back then, including, cruise control, where you set it on the side, um, and you set what speed you want to go, and then you push the button and you took your foot off the gas. I thought that was just the coolest of the cool, and but that's really been the first step in the in the
Yeah.
changing world of automatic driving. And I remember driving cars without power steering, without power brakes.
Yeah. I couldn't live without power steering. One time my power steering went out, I could not handle it. I was like,
Well, you
what?
got cars rolling because you can't turn the wheel when it's not.
It was tough. Okay, let's go to our rapid fire round. I want to talk about, and thank you so much. We're going to ask fun questions really quickly. If What would be your superpower? If you were like a superhero in real life, what would be your superpower?
My superpower would be making things right. So
I love that idea. I love it. Okay. Should you be a spirit animal, who would you conjure as your spirit animal?
a lion.
Why is that? Why choose the lion? Because he's the
Because
king?
because it's the king and they have a big heart.
I love that answer. Okay. If you could have lunch with somebody, living or dead, or meal, break bread, let's say that. Dinner, lunch, breakfast, breaking bread with somebody, living or dead, who would it be and why?
That's a good question. I think, wow, that is a good question. Um, I don't want. I want to stay political. I'd like to have lunch. Could I, with both Biden and Trump?
Good. I love that idea because you know what? Let's bring them to the table. Let's get some business done. All right.
Yes.
The country is way too divided. Love
Yes.
that. Okay. If you could go on a road trip, or where would you go on a road trip?
My fun. I think the most beautiful road trip is from Miami to Key West.
Oh, I heard about that. I was
Oh,
supposed to do that this summer with my sister. She brought her husband instead.
one side, the 7 Mile bridges. One side is the Gulf, and the other side's the Atlantic, and it's just the most blue water, and it's just incredibly beautiful down there. The only issue is if someone breaks down and you're on a 2-lane bridge, it's chaos.
Well, my husband has like a phobia. He's like, I don't know if we can do it, honey.
The bridges aren't high. It isn't like going over the Skyway Bridge in Tampa or the Mackinac Bridge for you.
Okay, good.
Yes.
And so this brings us to our end. It went by so fast. I really enjoyed talking to you so much.
Anytime.
Let's give some final advice. Last words of wisdom, final advice.
Being in the car business for as long as I've had, it's pretty easy. You take care of your customers and they'll take care of you.
I think that is absolutely the best answer you could ever give. I'm so grateful to you for your time, wisdom, all around interesting, and I just really enjoyed it. I hope everybody that's watching rewatches, shares it. We have a very special guest next week, Tom Klein. His family's been in the dealership business since 1925. It's epic. If you would like to be on the podcast, CarBiz Leaders Live, find me on LinkedIn. We will get through this. Evan, how do we get in touch with you? Should anybody in the Cleveland area need to buy Subs?
Just call me on my cell phone, 216-272-1515. Again, 216-272-1515. I take all my calls. I don't
I'll personally take care of you guys.
Yep.
That is epic and amazing.
Yep.
Honestly, I am honored to get to know you and have fun today. So enjoy your holiday weekend. Thanks everybody. And I shall make this available to you to share for anybody who's interested in watching. Thank you again.
Thanks.
All right, bye,
have a great
guys.
weekend.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.